Zombieland Double Tap was directed by Ruben Fleischer and written by Rhett, Reese, and Wernick, the guys who have also given us the first Zombieland movie, in addition to the Deadpool films and Life. And for this film, we basically have the same exact cast and crew that was involved with the original movie coming back for a sequel that is probably maybe 8 years too late, but hey, we're here, we have a new Zombieland movie, and that's exciting. In the story, they acknowledge that it takes place 10 years after the original in a very self-referential way, but in this we see the makeshift family that we saw in the original movie still trying to figure out how to live with one another and to deal with each other's quirks, while also dealing with some new problems that arise in their family, in addition to the rise of a mutant zombie that is much more capable of avoiding danger, posing new threats to humanity. Now, the first time I saw Zombieland, which was actually just last year, I really enjoyed it. I really appreciated the goofy nature of it all, and it was kind of like a 99-cent Americanized, blockbustery sort of Shaun of the Dead type of movie, but I appreciated what it did for what it was, and I had a lot of fun with it that first time. However, in preparation for Double Tap, naturally, I rewatched it. And while watching the movie, I felt there were a number of things that didn't really hold up as well on the second time. Namely the visuals. The CGI in that movie is pretty bad at times. And additionally, I could see that the movie was suffering from some of the same problems that I feel that the Deadpool movies suffer from, in that they poke fun at a lot of cliches, and they are definitely very self-referential, but at the same time, they proliferate those cliches, despite the fact that how much they make fun of them, they still do those same mistakes and they commit the same crimes as other movies. And knowing that going in and giving how that I feel that is a problem that people tend to ignore with the Deadpool films, I was skeptical with how Double Tap would turn out, but hopefully so. I was hoping for something that would be entertaining and worth the 10-year wait to see where the story would continue. And the best thing I can say about Zombieland Double Tap is that if you were hoping for more of what the original film gave you, then you should at least be able to leave the theater satisfied by what you saw. Whatever your expectations for a Zombieland sequel might have been, I'm sure they will be somewhat fulfilled by what this movie gives because of its style of humor. You know, all the characters are back and they're a lot of fun, portrayed by these very talented actors. And, you know, it's the same cast and crew, like I said before, so it is very similar in terms of visual presentation. In a way, you could see that as a blessing. Zombieland Double Tap doesn't really do much creatively different from the first movie, but given that there were a lot of things that worked in that original movie, continuing on with those traditions was a good move. And then that, I do have to say, there are plenty of sequences in this movie that are a lot of fun to watch. My personal favorite being this single-take zombie attack that takes place in what is essentially like a hotel that pays homage to the legacy of Elvis Presley. The music that's chosen and the type of filmmaking and editing that takes place in there was really creative. And another thing is that I really like some of the new characters that are in this movie as well. Rosario Dawson was a nice addition to the cast, in addition to a couple of other cameos that I won't spoil, but they appear at about the midpoint of the movie, and once you get where they're going with those types of cameos, it is a lot of fun, and it definitely made for some of the best jokes in the whole movie. Please stay for the mid-credit scene as well. It is golden, and I absolutely love what they did with that. But to add on to those points I had earlier though, given that Zombieland Double Tap does do more of what that original movie did, that also means that it carried over some of the same mistakes as that original movie too, and in some ways actually doubled down on some of those bad things. An aspect of Rhett, Reese, and Wernick's style of writing that really just bothers me for every single movie that they've done is that they seem to show off a bunch of their pop culture know-how cred in the types of lines that they write for their characters. You know, you have Deadpool in those movies who, of course, is always speaking in meta terms, but that's that character, and so it kind of makes more sense why they would say those things. But in a lot of characters for their movies, they make a lot of pop culture references, and then it seems like they're just doing that so that the audience can get on their side, and they're not really using those references in an extremely creative manner. Double Tap is especially guilty of this because there are a ton of jokes that definitely play off pop culture humor and the references they're in. But what irritated me is that instead of just playing off the pop culture references and hoping that the audience would catch them, one of the characters would say something in reference to like Terminator, for example, and then instead of just letting the joke land, literally a second later, another character will comment on that and basically say like, oh, so you're referencing this? And the other character's like, yeah, that's what I'm referencing, so you should laugh. I just got so annoyed after a while that the writers didn't have enough trust in their audience to get the humor that they were giving to them. If they just had a bit more faith and a bit more wit to the lines that they wrote, this could have been much more funny than it actually was. Ultimately, it just ended up being a situation where In sequences where there are definitely funny moments, some of the other jokes are undercut by the fact that they just explain away the joke literally a second after they give it. Another thing which definitely harmed the comedy for me is the addition of Zoe Deutch into the cast. I don't hate this actress. I mean, she's decent, and she clearly is doing a good job at being a character that is very, very incompetent, but she almost does that too well. They never find a way to make her character endearing in her stupidity. She's just consistently annoying. I could definitely feel the film dip in quality every time she was on screen, and she was more or less this film's version of L3 from Solo: A Star Wars Story, someone who they're trying to make out to be this annoying character, but never find a way to actually make her entertaining while you're watching. And of course, the way that she kind of factors into Jesse Eisenberg's character story is extremely predictable and played out. For the most part, every single character in this movie has a very trite and simple plot that you can basically predict the outcome for the second that a conflict is introduced. The Zombieland movies are ones that you don't really go to for the story, but I still feel that they could have done more in terms of developing their characters because it's been 10 years since we've seen them. A lot could have happened to them, and there certainly could have been development in their emotional progression. But even though I like all these actors and the things that they're doing with their characters, I never really felt like these characters were much different than from when we last saw them. There's a lot more they could have done to explore the ways that they changed since the original, and I felt there was definitely some unmet potential there. The last thing I'll comment on here are the visuals, in which I do really still appreciate the practical approach they take with all the makeup work. You can tell that they don't skimp out on making all these zombies believable and how gross and insane and deranged they look. They're really convincing, and for the most part, these producers knew how to create a zombie world that definitely feels desolate and run down, while also not being so drab to where you don't really enjoy what you're watching. In terms of the production design, they find a neat line to where they can make it fun, but still convince you that this is a world that is overrun by zombies. But again, there is certainly a problem with CGI here. It is markedly improved from the first movie for sure, but it's the kind of CGI work that stands out from the rest of the actual practical live action imagery, and I don't expect it to hold up that much. In the end, Zombieland Double Tap has some entertaining moments and provides some humor that is consistent in quality with the first movie, but it doubles down on the things that worked and most especially the things that didn't work. And in this particular case, the things that didn't work just outweighed the good for me, and I was left underwhelmed by it. With that, I will be giving Zombieland Double Tap a C. As far as an age recommendation goes, it's pretty much on par with the original, being that it has edgy comedy and quite a bit of coarse language as well, but I still feel it's not on the same level of maturity and intensity as other zombie films have been in the past. It's rated R mostly for the fact that it has inoffensive language and some crass jokes. The zombie violence itself is never really that gruesome, even though there are some instances where there are some slow motion blood-stained shots. And also, a zombie does get its head smashed in by a foot, so that was kind of disgusting in a way. But nevertheless, I never really felt that this was really pushing the boundaries as far as the zombie genre goes. So I would say it's best for older teenagers, you know, people who are like at least 15 years old. Thanks again for watching, guys. I always appreciate you coming here for reviews. And check out my next video coming soon, which will be a review with Justin and Jared on Star Wars The Force Awakens. If you liked this content though, please like and subscribe. It really does help me grow my content here and reach new viewers. Also, you can hit the bell if you would like notifications every single time I post here on YouTube. But in the end, thank you so much for watching as always, and I hope you have a good one.